That's the recording started, Chair. I'll just wait for Christy to confirm that the live stream is running. And that's the live stream, Chair, so we're good to go.
Well, good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to Aberdeenshire Licensing Board. It's Wednesday, the 20th of April, and this is the last board meeting of the current session. So we'd like to go straight into the agenda. Item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do you have any apologies?
Chair, I'll just take the Derona by roll call, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Peter Argyle.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, Fiona.
Mr. Calder. Stephen
Good morning, present. Thank you.
Mrs. Marion Ewanson.
Present.
Mr. Alistair Forsyth.
Present.
Ms. Victoria Harper.
Present.
I have apologies from Mr. Jeff Hutchison. Mr. Glenn Reynolds.
Good morning, I'm here.
Mrs. Anne Stirling.
Present.
Mr. Brian Topping.
Here.
And I have apologies from Lee Wilson, Chair. Also in attendance today are Keith Simpson, Senior LSO, Lisa Godini, LSO, Sarah Ward, LSO, Kevin MacDonald, LSO, Sergeant Neil Grant, Police Scotland. We have Christy Young, who's doing the live streaming, and we also have Beatrice Hay and Delcia Borland from our admin team working behind the scenes. And I believe we also have Jill Joss in the meeting as well. Apologies from Lauren Cowie. She was not able to be here today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please note that the board meeting is being live streamed and will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Can members activate their cameras where possible to enable you to join by video? And can all attendees mute their microphones, please, when not speaking? Please do not come in during any items unless I invite you to do so. Can I please confirm from members that you're able to access the papers for today's meeting in advance? I take it that you have. We've done the servant, but to let you know, if you have any IT issues, Diego Alves, the ICT officer, will be available during the meeting if required. So we've done the servant, so thank you for that, Fiona. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Can members please state if they have any interest to declare? And if you have, please clarify the item number, the nature of your declaration, and whether or not you will be leaving the meeting. Silence means there's no members of interest to declare, so that is fine. So we'll move on swiftly to item 3. That's the resolutions of equalities. Do you agree with the resolution of equalities?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Great.
fine. Thank you very much indeed. Item 4 is approval of the minutes. The minute for approval is a correct minute. Can we please agree that it is a correct minute, please? I take silence means we're agreed, so thank you very much for that. Item number 5 is application for provisional premises licence, non-contentious. I'll hand over now to our Deputy Clerk Fiona to take us through them one by one. The first one is the Marlodge Estate in Braemar.
Thank you, Chair. This is for a provisional premises licence. The core hours are within policy, both on and off sales. You'll see a list of activities proposed in the appendix, and there will be children and young persons access. There were comments made by Police Scotland, which have been reflected in the local conditions. The comment by Building Standards is not actually applicable to this licence because all that is required is planning consent for a provisional premises licence. If the board grants this licence, before they can operate, a confirmation of the provisional premises licence must be granted, at which point in time there must not just be a building one but a completion certificate in place. So those comments will be relevant to the next part of this application should this be granted. Certificate of compliance has been received and the applicant has agreed to the local conditions and specific conditions as listed in the report. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Fiona. Is there any questions? If not, quite straightforward. So we're happy to agree. We agree.
Chair,
Oh,
Chair, I think Councillor Mr. Argyle wishes to come in.
oh yes, Mr. Argyle, Peter.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. No questions or concerns. I should perhaps have noted at the start of the meeting that I am actually a member of the National Trust for Scotland. I don't think it's not significant, but I do need to mention it because it is on my list of interests. So I do need to
Transparency statement, Mr. Argyle, yeah?
say again.
A transparency statement.
A transparency statement. You put these things so well, Fiona. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for that, Peter. That's fine. So that will be minuted. Okay, the next one, so we're all agreed to that one. So number 2 is Deeside Rugby Football Club, West End, Burn of Burnley in Bankery. Fiona.
Yes, Chair, this is a new premises licence for a members club. We haven't had many of these in recent years. And as you can see, it's to be operated as a members club primarily for the focus of rugby football, but will involve other facilities and activities for members and their bona fide guests. The core hours for on sales and off sales are both well within policy, and the recommended conditions made by the police have been incorporated into local conditions. You will note there that there was an error in the police observations, but we've gone back to Police Scotland and those have been corrected, and the police have confirmed that they are happy with the hours that the applicant has applied for. We've received the certificate of compliance and the applicant has accepted the recommended local and specific conditions as listed in the report. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions from board members? If not, happy to agree. Yeah, I take silence as agreement. So thank you very much for that, and thank you, Fiona. So now move on to application number 3, Caledonian Collectibles in 5 Bridge Street in Balater. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is for a new premises licence for off sales only, and this is to allow the premises to sell spirits, wines, beers and collectibles, and these are online by delivery and by post. The recommendations made in the representations have been accepted as local conditions. The certificate of compliance has been accepted. The conditions are all as set out in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? No, are we all happy to agree? That's it. So this has been agreed. So thank you very much, everyone. Number 4 application is the White Horse Hotel, 65 High Street in Stricken. Over to you, Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a re-licence of the premises following the surrender of the previous licence by a former tenant of the premises. The core hours are all within policy. The activities are listed. Children and young persons access has been amended. The plans have been updated to reflect what is actually on the ground. Everything has been agreed by the applicants and their agents. The recommended local and specific conditions are as listed in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? Again, all very straightforward. So we're happy to agree the application. We are. So that has been agreed for the White Horse Hotel in Stricken. Thank you very much. Number 5 application is Packs a Punch, quite an unusual name, Packs a Punch, and that is 59 Lily Loch Road in Stonehaven. Over to yourself, Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a premises licence for a new business that is operating out of residential property. No customers will be attending the property. It is purely to deliver cocktail boxes to customers, and sales will be online through social media and a website, and a delivery address will be given, and the orders will then be delivered to those addresses. You'll see that there are recommended conditions by Police Scotland, and those have been incorporated into the recommended local conditions and the specific conditions as set out in the report. The certificate of compliance has been received, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Nice to see this unusual one coming forward, but good to see people branching out. So can I ask if there's any questions from board members? If not, can we agree that, please? That's agreed. Thank you very much. So that's Packs a Punch has been agreed. And the last one in this particular section is number 6, Good Brand and Ross, which is in Strathdon. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This premises is going to run as a tea room, cafe restaurant with table service and a gift shop. It's located on the road to the Lech Ski Centre. It'll be open all year round, 7 days a week. They'll be doing both on and off sales. Core hours are well within policy. The activities are listed, and children and young people's access is provided for. The representations are in relation to conditions, all of which have been incorporated into the recommended local and specific conditions as set out in the report, and the certificate of compliance has been received. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree this application. We are. Thank you very much. So that's a Good Brand and Ross has been agreed also. So we now move swiftly on to item 6 on the agenda, applications for major variations non-contentious. And we'll take each one in turn. So number 1 is Lidl's Balmore Retail Park in Peterhead. Over to yourself, Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. For the benefit of those present at the hearing, page 42, Lidl's Peterhead, and page 58 are for the same premises. Page 58 is a duplicate. My apologies for that in the report. Lidl's has been undergoing re-merchandising of their stores across the country, and as a result of this, their alcohol display area has slightly increased, and therefore a major variation has been required. We have the certificate of compliance lodged. There are recommended local conditions by the LSO which have been accepted by the applicant, and there are no specific conditions for this licence. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Any questions from board members? If not, do we happy to agree? Silence and nod of the head is agreed. So that is Lidl's of Peterhead has been agreed. So number 2, Fiona, please, is Greens of Peterhead.
Thank you, Chair. This is a major variation following a recent transfer of the premises, and the off-sale hours has increased to 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday. The seasonal variations that required the premises to be closed on certain days over Christmas and New Year have been removed, and there's a slight increase to the alcohol capacity for the display area. The LSO recommended local conditions. They've been incorporated into the conditions as set out in the report. There are no specific conditions. The certificate of confirmation has been received, and I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, to be happy to agree. Yes, that's agreed. So Greens of Peterhead has been agreed. Number 3 is Lidl's Inverurie Retail Park. Over to yourself, Fiona, please.
Yeah, this is identical to the Lidl's at Peterhead application. Again, local conditions, no specific conditions. We have the certificate of confirmation. Happy to take questions.
Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree. That is agreed. So that's Lidl's of Inverurie Retail Park. That has been agreed. Number 4 is Premier Store, which is in Buckenhaven in Peterhead. Over to yourself, Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. The name of this premises is changing. It was known as Best One. It will now be known as the Premier Store. The terminal hour has been extended to 10 o'clock 7 days a week, and there's a new DPM, and again they're removing restricted seasonal variations to allow them to operate their full hours in the festive season. We have the certificate of compliance. The applicant has agreed the recommended local conditions, and there are no specific conditions recommended for the application, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree. So that is agreed. So Premier Store in Buckenhaven Peterhead has been agreed. Number 5 is the BP Mill Inn filling station, which is in Stonehaven. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. A slight refurb has led to a 0.63 metre square increase in their alcohol capacity area. There have been no objections or representations made to the application. The certificate of compliance has been received and the applicant has agreed the local conditions, and there are no specific conditions recommended for this licence. Again, happy to take questions.
Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree with this one. Thank you very much indeed. That is the BP Mill filling station in Stonehaven has been agreed. So number 6 is Marshall's Farm Shop in Kintore. Fiona,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, Chair. Marshall's Farm Shop is now adding on-sale activities, addition of a cafe restaurant to do bar meals, receptions, performances, and also an outside drinking area. They're adding on-sale hours to reflect the use of the on-sale parts of the premises. They're also extending their off-sale hours to 10 p.m. and children and young persons are being provided access to the on-sale parts of the premises and the outside drinking area. Certificate of compliance has been received and the conditions recommended by the police and the LSO have been incorporated into the recommended local and specific conditions which have been accepted by the applicant. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree with this one. Yes, we're agreed. So thank you, everyone. So that's Marshall's Farm Shop in Kintore has been agreed. Number 7 is Greens of Ellen. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we're seeing a slight increase in the terminal hour for off-sales hours from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock throughout the week, an increase in the alcohol capacity area. They've added the playing of recorded music in the background, and they've increased the range of activities to include lottery terminals, pay points, and a full range of groceries and other products throughout the store. We've received the certificate of compliance and the conditions proposed by the LSO have been included in the recommended local conditions for the premises. There are no specific conditions recommended and the applicant has agreed the proposed conditions. Happy to answer questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, we're happy to agree with this one. We are. Thank you very much indeed. So that's the Greens of Ellen has been agreed. Number 8 is Sainsbury's School Road, Midhill, Kintore. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. The premises are changing the name of the store from Sainsbury's to Sainsbury's Local and are increasing the range of activities operated at the store to include home delivery, click and collect, recorded music in the background, some live performances such as carol singers at Christmas, product launches, tastings, etc. as listed in the report. The certificate of compliance has been submitted. The representations made by the police and the LSO related to proposed conditions, those have been incorporated into the recommended local and specific conditions as set out in the report. This is seeking the approval of the licence in principle, as the certificate of compliance has still to be lodged with ourselves. So it's recommended for approval in principle, subject to receipt of the certificate of confirmation, Chair. Happy to take questions.
That is fine. So any questions from board members? If not, with that condition that Fiona has put in there, which is in the paper, so we're happy to agree this one? Yes. Okay, thank you. So that is Sainsbury's in Kintore has been agreed. And the second last one in this section is the Derona Distillery. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, in Huntly. Over to you, Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. The distillery is extending their licensed premises to include another building within the grounds of the premises, and this is to extend their guided tours of the distillery and to do nosings and tastings during core hours, corporate bookings, that kind of thing. There will be no access for children or young people, and they're increasing their on-sales capacity as a result of adding the additional building on by 89 persons, and at the same time they're substituting a new premises manager onto the licence. We've received the certificate of confirmation. The representations by police and LSO have been incorporated into the recommended local conditions, and there are no specific conditions in relation to this application. Happy to take questions on this one, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? That's good. It's certainly encouraging to see expansion of businesses, you know, especially with COVID. But anyway, are we happy to agree this one, board members? We are. Thank you very much, everyone. So that is the Derona Distillery in Huntly has been agreed. And the final one in this section, number 10, is the Fife Lodge Hotel, Smiddy Hill Road in Banff. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This major variation follows on a recent transfer of the licence at the premises. The premises have undergone a major refurbishment, both inside and out. Bedrooms have been refurbished, new kitchen equipment put in. The reception area has been completely altered and opened up, restoring the original layout of the premises. They're seeking to open later on Sundays. They've replaced a disabled toilet door. They've added a new decked terraced area outside the premises, and the capacity of the outdoor area and children's access has been amended to reflect that. We have the certificate of compliance, and the proposals have been built into the recommended local conditions and specific conditions. The only other thing I would say is that building standards advised there was no completion certificate in place. However, there was a building warrant, and where it's a major variation as opposed to a new licence, a building warrant is sufficient to allow the board to grant the application. So there is no issue with those observations. And with that, Chair, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? If not, happy to agree this one. The nod of the head is yes. So the Fife Lodge Hotel in Banff has been agreed. So we'll move on now to item 7. That's 2 occasional licenses objection hearing.
Chair, could I ask for a pause of the recording?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
applicant has not come into the lobby. I'm going to have to try and get hold of the applicant. So if I pause the recording, and if Christy could confirm that she's pausing the live stream, I will try and get in touch with the applicant for you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is John Patterson.
You're
I'm
here.
here.
You're
Yeah.
here. You're not showing up anywhere, so you are here. Thank you
Yeah.
for confirming that, Mr. Patterson. Chair, we're good to go. I'll just confirm with Christy that the live streaming has not been paused. If you just hang on a second. Christy, can you message me just to confirm that live streaming is still going on? Yes, Chair, we're good to go.
That's fine. So we're on item 7. That's 2 occasional licenses objection hearing. The applicant is John Patterson, and we've also got Keith Simpson, the LSO. So please note that the board meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Can I now ask the Deputy Clerk to confirm procedure for the hearing, please?
Thank you, Chair. The procedure will be that the applicant will be invited to speak to the applications, addressing any issues raised in the letter of objection. The Licensing Standards Officer will then be asked to speak to his objection. The licence holder will then be offered an opportunity to respond to any thing that the LSO has said. Members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions of either party. The LSO will then be invited to make concluding remarks. Summing up, no new evidence can be led at that stage. The applicant will then be invited to make concluding remarks, and the committee will then be asked if they require any legal advice. I will review the legal test. The board will then decide whether they wish to debate the application in public or whether they wish to adjourn. And finally, the board will move to decide whether the applications should be granted or refused, applying the legal test. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I'd just like to confirm that the applicant is present, that Mr. John Patterson. I believe you're here, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, I am. Yep.
Yes, a very good morning and welcome to Aberdeenshire Licensing Board. You're very welcome.
Very
Can I please confirm that yourself, John, are satisfied you have received all the relevant information, and do you feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yep. I am.
Yeah, that is fine. Can I please identify that the Licensing Standards Officer is present? That's Keith Simpson.
Yes, Chair, present.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Keith. Can I please confirm, Keith, that you are satisfied you've received all the relevant information, and do you feel able to participate in the determination of this application?
Yes, indeed.
That's fine. In line with the guidance you have received in the public participant meeting protocol for licensing board hearings, please can you all mute your microphones when not speaking, please, if your phone permits this. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so, and please do not interrupt other speakers. If you do so, you may be removed from the meeting. I'm sure that won't be necessary. Once you have been asked to make your concluding remarks, you are not entitled to speak again unless to answer a question from a board member. Once the board has made its decision, you'll be asked to leave the meeting. If the board requires to adjourn to deliberate the application, you will be removed from the meeting and the recording of the meeting will be then paused. On resuming the meeting, the Deputy Clerk will re-invite you into the meeting and the recording of the meeting will be restarted. Over to you, Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Patterson, I'd invite you to speak to your application.
Hello, how are you all doing?
Fine, thank you.
So we, over the last 2 years, because of COVID, we've been granted occasional licenses, and I arranged with the council to rent an area of the green across the road from the Balmoral Bar, which we use for outdoor for tables for eating and drinking. So every time we've applied for occasional license, we've been granted them over the last couple of years. And the police haven't had any objections, and I don't think there's been any. There's been no reports to the licensing standard officer. So what we're looking to do is carry that on for this year. Obviously, with everything that's happened, COVID's still a big thing. People have got used to sitting outside, eating and drinking. Obviously, it's a lot safer to do that. One of the life's objectives is to protect and improve public health. So I feel like by allowing us to use the green area again, it will give people a safer alternative rather than being inside. COVID is obviously still a big thing. You know, hospital numbers are high. We're having to have this meeting not in person, you know, over the phone or Zoom. Now we've spoken to Invercald, who sold the area of land to the council, and they've agreed again that we can have it. There is something in the title deeds that says you're not allowed to sell alcohol on the area on the greens. But Angus McNichol, who's the factor at Invercald, he says he'll let us do that again as he has the previous 2 years. If we were to get this license granted, we'll be employing a full-time chef and another 2 full-time members of staff who are all local to the area. Over the past couple of years, everyone's commented and how all the customers have commented on how good it is for the village. We're speaking to a lot of the local businesses. They see it as an asset because people obviously come to our place and then they'll sit and eat and drink, and then the other family members we go and use the shops. I think that we can apply for a pavement or a street cafe license, which would allow us to have tables just outside the bar on the street. So all we're kind of asking is if we can just get it across the road. Ideally, I would like it for all the summer months, from April to October. But that is kind of up to you guys. And yeah, I think that is all for now. Thanks.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. Can I please now invite Keith Simpson, our licensed stand officer, to speak to his objection, please. Over to you, Keith.
Yes, good morning, Chair and board members. This is a report compiled by myself as Licensing Standards Officer in terms of Section 57.3 of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. These applications seek to license an area of ground measuring approximately 7 metres by 7 metres on the Church Green at Balater. The land is situated on the corner of Bridge Street and Netherley Place. The Balmoral Bar, which would service the areas across the road on the opposite side of corner of Bridge Street and Netherley Place. Within the 7 metre by 7 metre area will be housed a marquee tent measuring approximately 6 metres by 3 metres. These applications are thought to be the first and second of a series which seek to license the area over the spring and summer periods, and they apply for the periods 14th of April 2022 to 27th of April 2022 and the 28th of April 2022 to 11th of May 2022. Contained within your papers, there is a small diagram which shows the location of the area to be licensed in purple, and you can see the Balmoral Bar marked PH is across the road on the corner of Netherley Place, Bridge Street. By way of background, Church Green Balater is green space in the heart of the village. The ground itself is owned by Aberdeenshire Council, having bought it in 1987 from the Invercold Estates. It is maintained by the Council's Landscape Services. In 2020, John Patterson, the current operator of the Balmoral Bar, Balater, applied to Aberdeenshire Council to seek permission for the use of the part of Church Green to facilitate a beer garden. At this time, government restrictions for coronavirus only allowed for consumption of alcohol outdoors at licensed premises. The purpose of this request was due to the Balmoral Bar not having such facilities within its existing licence. A temporary licence to occupy was granted to Mr Patterson by Aberdeenshire Council's estate. Mr Patterson then proceeded to apply for and be granted occasional licences for the same area in question over the spring-summer period in 2020. The licences were granted with the following conditions. Standard conditions 3, 3A, 6A, 6B and 16, with additional conditions applied for the outdoor area should be opened in line with granted hours for the premises and must not be used for activities linked to the sale or consumption of alcohol after 2200 hours. Children and young persons must be accompanied by a responsible adult at all times. The licence holder must take reasonable steps to ensure that litter and, where used, glass and bottles removed from outdoor areas on a regular basis. The licence holder should consider the safe use of alternative to glass containers and bottles in outdoor drinking areas. And there should be no amplified music or noise emitted from the use of microphones, speakers, or other forms of entertainment within the outdoor drinking area. Given that the pandemic extended into the following year, the process was repeated in 2021. I can confirm that during the 2 years that the beer garden has been in operation in 2020 and 2021, I've received no complaints contrary to the licensing objectives. Turning to my representation, the original intention for the use of this ground as a beer garden was to be temporary. At the time of the original application, government restrictions only allowed for the consumption of alcohol at hospitality venues to be outdoors. Given that the Balmoral Bar, unlike others in the village, had no such facilities, it was agreed to grant the licence. This was to allow the business to trade at a time when hospitality venues would otherwise have to remain closed. As we come into spring 2022, the position in relation to the coronavirus pandemic is different. Although the number of cases in Aberdeenshire remain high, the restrictions previously in place have all but one been lifted. This has since been superseded by the removal of the requirement for face coverings this Monday just passed. So effectively, all restrictions are now lifted. Consequently, the Balmoral Bar is back in full operation, and I see no valid requirement for the ground to be used as a beer garden going forward. The area is public green space for the enjoyment of all. and I cannot think of any other location in Aberdeenshire where a beer garden has been allowed on public green space. There is an existing title condition prohibiting the use of the ground for selling liquor. State would need to waive this again, as they have done in 2020 and 2021. There is also an existing approved policy against the disposal of open space, so this proposal conflicts with this. This would also encourage other hospitality owners to apply for space. There are also servitude rights on the area of the green that would also have to be dealt with. The ground itself is owned, managed and maintained by Aberdeenshire Council and would be subject to a further right to occupy with the applicant. To date, no such agreement is in place. I recommend that the board refuse the application due to the easing of COVID restrictions and the legal restrictions on the use of public space. The premises land applied for are unsuitable for the sale of alcohol, out with the temporary requirements that applied when there were COVID restrictions in place regarding the sale of alcohol. I therefore conclude that using in my papers that section D applies, that having regard to the nature of the activities proposed to be carried on in the premises to which the application relates, the location, character and condition of the premises, and the persons likely to frequent the premises, the board considers that the premises are unsuitable for the use of the sale of alcohol. Should the board see fit to grant this application, I would ask that the same conditions be applied as stated previously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson, our LSO officer. Now, can I please ask the applicant, Mr. Patterson, would you like to come in and respond to any of the issues raised by the LSO officer?
Hello. Yes. So we've been trying since the start of the year trying to get a right to occupy agreement made with the council. The problem is that it was Elaine McCarran who dealt with it the previous 2 years, and now she doesn't do that anymore. So it's a Corey O'Shea. I first emailed her in January to ask if we could get this set up for the summertime, and we didn't have an answer. So then I emailed her twice. Then I got in touch with the councillor Paul Gibb, who we spoke with before last 2 years, and then he was trying to chase them. And then, so we eventually, I've been sending several emails to try and get this agreement in place. Now, the reason why it's not is because they say there's lots of things needed to get in place, such as the licence. We need to get permission from Invercall Estate, but we have permission from Angus McNichol from Invercall Estate to use it. Now, hopefully today we can get the licence sorted out, and then hopefully they'll then say we can have this right to occupy agreed. The other thing is the precedents. You know, if we were to get it, then it would set a precedent that I don't think every other licensed premises in the village, the Balater, has an outside area. But equally, over the last 2 years, when people were getting to use different areas, outside areas, because of COVID, nobody has applied. It wasn't easy to get the agreement from the council in the first place. It took lots of emails and several months of time, and then again to get the occasional licenses sorted. So I feel that if anybody else was to do it, then you guys just deal with them on a case-by-case basis. I think the other thing about saying the premises unsuitable is that we used the green area for 12 months over the last 2 years. You know, we were closed a couple of times because of COVID, and we managed it fine with all the legal restrictions that were in place. You know, face masks, social distancing, hand sanitizing. We were sure that we did table service all the time to make sure, and I always had somebody with a premises license on at all times, so that, you know, we were sticking with all the licensing laws. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. That was fine. Right, can I now ask board members if they have any questions for either party, either LSO or indeed applicant Mr. Patterson? If you do have a question, if you like to raise your hand on the Teams raise your hand section, please.
Chair, we have Mr. Forsyth, followed by Mrs. Ewanson.
Okay, Mr. Forsyth, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Patterson. My question is to you, sir. You say that the Angus McNichol has waived, the factor of the estate has waived that. I'm very curious about that because I would expect to see a document that would legally support that that waiver. Is there such a thing available?
I don't. So what we did is we approached Eva Blackett, and then she spoke to Angus McNichol. But now realising I probably should have had that written down.
So, notwithstanding the informal nature of the thing, there is no legal standing of this waiver that you described to us.
No,
There's
not a legal. There's not a legal document. No.
So, okay, I think the other thing I wanted to ask you was that you described the thing as crossing the road, and I'm not familiar with the territory, and I'm seeing the map here. Just describe to me how service occurs from your premises to across the road, and you know, I'm certainly looking at from crossing the road. I've never ever seen a licensed premises to serve drinks across a road. Describe to me how that, you know, how that works, and how do customers order drinks from the core premises to across the road? Do they travel across the road themselves to the bar, or how does that work?
No. So what we have is full table service. So it's 25 steps from the bar to the outside area, and we have somebody that looks after that the whole time. So basically they're there, and then we had a sign up saying please wait to be seated, and then they would be sat, you know, given the menu, taking the drinks order, and then we would always ensure that we were taking the drinks out to them. I think I'm not sure if I put that in the application or not, because that way that nobody else was carrying a drink across, you know, so they're not at risk. It was always the staff that were doing it. And then we would take their order, come inside to the bar, and then we would take the food out as well. So it was all table service.
So let me just see if I got this correct. A customer would come along and sit at the table and expect to be served by the attendant. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had a sign up that said please wait to be seated, but often people would just walk past that, or they'd either wait or they would just ignore it. And then, but I said we always had somebody going backwards and forwards. That's why we need the extra. We would be employing extra staff.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. That clarifies my thinking on the situation. Thank you, Chair. I'm finished.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. We've now got a question from Ms. Ewanson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a question for Mr. Patterson. We don't have many occasions when businesses can rent ground from Aberdeenshire Council that I'm familiar with. I just wondered how you dealt with maintenance of that area, given that it would normally be maintained by Landscape Services. Did you take on the maintenance of that particular square? Or, I mean, I've seen the gazebos and I see the area round about. I just wonder how that was shared or how that was worked out, because presumably Landscape Services were still responsible for the area surrounding the gazebos.
Yes, they were. But so in our occasional licenses the last 2 years, we rented. I don't know if you're familiar with the village, the Old Man's Hut, which sits just next to our area, and then we stored the furniture away. So the furniture was only really out there from kind of 11:30 till either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, depending on the license that we had at the time. So they were allowed, so they were able to come in and cut the grass every morning. Whoever was setting up would go out and, you know, clear away all the rubbish from all that area of the green. But yeah, it was still the council that were maintaining that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? I can't see any. Do you, Fiona? No. So thank you, board members, for that. Can I please now invite Mr. Keith Simpson, the licensed standard officer, to make his concluding remarks, but no new evidence. So over to you, Keith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to sum up, yeah, my final points are that the previous applications were granted at a time when COVID restrictions only allowed for outdoor drinking at hospitality venues. This no longer applies, as all COVID restrictions have now been removed. The use of occasional licence was only meant to be temporary. The ground itself is owned and maintained by Aberdeenshire Council and requires a valid temporary licence to occupy from Aberdeenshire Council's estates. To date, this is not in place. There is an existing title condition prohibiting the use of the ground for the sale of alcohol, and this would have to be waived again. I therefore consider that the area applied for is unsuitable for the sale of alcohol, out with the temporary requirements that applied while COVID restrictions were in place, and I therefore recommend that the board refuse the applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Now I'll turn to Mr. John Patterson. Do you wish to say anything in closing? And please remember that you're not allowed to bring in any new evidence at this stage. Over to you, Mr. Patterson.
Hi, just that we feel it was a great asset for the village during this time, and people are looking to seek for outside eating and drinking at the moment. But that's really about everything. I think I've said most things.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. That is fine. Can I hand over now to Deputy Clerk Fiona, please?
Thank you, Chair. Do the board members wish any legal advice before I go through the legal test? I see Mr. Forsyth has his hand raised.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I would prefer to have a session where we can seek your good offices and legal advice. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, are you seeking an adjournment?
Yes, please.
Can I read through the provisions of the legal test before we do that, Chair, if the board wants an adjournment? Okay, thank you.
So can I ask, thanks, Mr. Forsyth. So is the board happy with the request for adjournment? I think that's a fair comment. So we agree to that. So just before we do, Fiona, you want to go through the legal test, please?
Thank you. The legal test is as set out on page 95, Appendix 4 of your papers. And it replicates what is set out in section 59 of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. And the provisions are that if there are certain grounds under the Act where the board must refuse an application, that does not apply in this case. In any other case, the board must consider whether any of the grounds of refusal apply. If none of the grounds of refusal apply, the board must grant. If any of them apply, the board must refuse. These applications have been referred to the board under the Act by the Chair in line with the scheme of delegation for that reason. If we don't hold a hearing, we must ensure the applicant is given an opportunity to speak. We've done that, and Mr. Patterson has also provided written submissions which form Appendix 6 to your papers. So the grounds of refusal are set out at paragraph 6 of the legal test, that the premises to which the application relates are excluded premises. This is not applicable to these applications. That the application must be refused under sections 56, 64 or 65. That does not apply to these applications. that the board considers the granting of the applications would be inconsistent with one or more of the licensing objectives that may apply to these applications, and the objector has specifically said that he's objecting on the grounds of paragraph D, that having regard to the nature of the activities proposed to be carried on in the premises to which the application relates, the location, character and condition of the premises and the persons likely to frequent the premises, the board considers that the premises are unsuitable for use for the sale of alcohol. So the relevant parts of the legal test that the board can apply today are both paragraph C relating to the licensing objectives and paragraph D, Chair. If the board is happy to adjourn, I'm actually going to trial a breakout room. So I will set that up just now, and then I will ask Christy to confirm that the live streaming has been paused. Okay, so before I go to the breakout room, I'll ask everybody else to remain in the room while the board are out with the room until such time as the board members come back in. And this is not working.
Could I suggest a 5-minute comfort break while you're setting it up, Fiona? Would the board be happy with that?
Yes, Chair.
I
Okay,
think that's a good idea, Chair. Thank you.
Christy, can I ask you to